Haiti's chief prosecutor is seeking charges against acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry following revelations of his contact with a key suspect in the assassination of President Jovenel Moise. The head of the Venezuelan government delegation to the talks of opposition sectors hosted by Mexico, Jorge Rodriguez, announced this Tuesday that Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab has been made a delegate to the talks. The Military Junta ruling Guinea since the coup against President Alpha Condé began a 4-day series of talks this Tuesday intended to pave a return to civilian rule. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is from the south. I'm Katrina Goss. The political instability in Haiti looks set to continue. The country's chief prosecutor is now seeking charges against acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry following revelations of his contact with a key suspect in the assassination of President Jovenel Moise. The judge investigating the killing was asked to charge Henry with involvement in the case, as phone records show that the PM spoke with the suspect named Joseph Badio, a former intelligence officer, the same night that Moise was killed in his residence near Port-au-Prince. The chief prosecutor also ordered the acting Prime Minister not to leave the country until he answers questions regarding the allegations. On Monday, Haiti's Office of Citizen Protection, an ombudsman-like body, demanded that Henry step down and urged him to appear in the prosecutor's office as requested to shed light on the situation. Nicaragua's Supreme Electoral Council informed on Monday that the process to define the electoral roll for this year's general elections has concluded, thus complying with the schedule for the November vote. Justice Alberto Julian Blando stated that the registration period ended on September 8th, which was followed by a verification process in order to ensure all changes to names or addresses were made to the roll. More than 1.2 million consultations were registered on the online platform established for the process, with over 160,000 more people registering to be included on the electoral roll. The final roll will be made available to all political parties and corresponding authorities on September 23rd. Nicaragua will hold general elections on November 7th.
With the closing of the electoral roll, we have formed a definitive electoral roll and platform. The period for objections regarding the demarcations and locations of voting centers has also concluded, and we can report that no objections have been submitted.
In Guatemala, members of the Committee for Rural Development announced demonstrations throughout the country on Wednesday in rejection of the celebration of the bicentennial of the independence of Guatemala, given that this historic date ignores the ongoing genocide of indigenous peoples, and against the current government of President Alejandro Giammattei.
We have spent 200 years with the people who have been the object of oppression, plundering, robbery. In Guatemala, we were persecuted, our parents, our grandparents were assassinated during the 36 years of internal armed conflict. That is to say, the independence or the supposed freedom that many speak of in Guatemala is only for a small group of people. It is for a class that has governed, that has dominated, and that continues in impunity, and that also continues on the acts of corruption in this country. For the same reason for us, the native peoples there has never been free, much less independent.
This Wednesday, September 15th, will see the launch of the Caribbean Network for Solidarity with Cuba, which will be hosting a virtual conference to launch activities in support of the island. The organisation, which seeks to promote solidarity with Cuba among different organisations operating in the Caribbean, notes that the 60-year economic blockade imposed by the United States, along with the COVID-19 pandemic, have made life more difficult and further harmed the Cuban economy. The network emphasises that Cuba has always shown its solidarity with the peoples of the world in their times of need, and that it's time to return the favour. The speakers on Wednesday will include representatives from Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia and Trinidad and Tobago. Venezuelan Olympic champion Lilimar Rojas paraded through Caracas this Tuesday following her return home after competing in the Tokyo Olympic Games and the Diamond League in Zurich. The Olympic gold medalist and world record holder in the triple jump, who secured another victory in Zurich, was welcomed by crowds throughout the parade, which started at the airport about 40 minutes away from the capital. Dancing alongside her family on an open-top bus as she showed off her gold medal and the trophy of the league, Yulimar later offered statements thanking Venezuelans for their support and stressing that she was proud to serve as an inspiration for many girls.
I'm very happy to see all these people here that are super excited, super happy, with smiles from here to here, watching me and celebrating an achievement that is not only mine, but all of yours. With discipline, love, passion, and hard work comes the result, and here is the result: Olympic gold medal, world record, Olympic record, diamond for Venezuela.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The head of the Venezuelan government delegation to the talks of opposition sectors hosted by Mexico, Jorge Rodriguez, announced this Tuesday that Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab has been made a delegate to the talks. Rodriguez explained that Saab was arrested and imprisoned in Cape Verde when he was travelling as an envoy to secure much-needed supplies for Venezuela, including medicines, in the face of the difficulties posed by the United States sanctions. He stressed that the diplomat has been a victim of the ongoing imperialist attacks on Venezuela. Last Thursday, a Cape Verde court agreed to extradite Saab to the United States for trial. In March, the Court of Justice of the Economic Community of West African States ordered Cape Verde to free Saab, but the country's Supreme Court disregarded the decision, claiming it was not binding.
I would like to inform to the public opinion the decision of incorporating Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab as a full member of this delegation, the delegation of the Bolivarian government, and we would also like to inform that Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab becomes full member, full delegate, exercising all functions before the social table, which was approved in the partial agreement signed in Mexico last Monday.
Rodriguez also pointed out that the Bolivarian government will take steps to recover Venezuelan assets seized abroad.
We will proceed for Venezuela to recover assets that only belong to the people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and that are subject to the prerogatives and regulations established by the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We have warned about it. That story surrounding Monomeros, Citgo, had a single intention. That was to steal those companies. Duque already stole them. He stole them, and we are going to take this issue to the negotiating table in Mexico. How can it be explained that Ivan Duque seized a company that has belonged to the people of Venezuela for 47 years?
At the 48th regular session of the UN Human Rights Council, Venezuela denounced the ongoing unilateral coercive measures imposed by the United States and their negative impact on the population. Venezuelan authorities stressed that despite these pressures, the lives and fundamental rights of Venezuelan citizens continue to be guaranteed. The UN High Commissioner's own report recognised the successful management of the pandemic despite the seizure of Venezuela's assets held abroad, as stated by Hector Constant, Venezuela's representative to the Council. The diplomat denounced once again that the US prevents Venezuela from acquiring food and medicines much needed by its population through its sanctions policy. In addition to recognising the damage done by the sanctions to the Venezuelan people, the High Commissioner thanked the government for the progress made in cooperation and technical assistance regarding human rights issues. However, Venezuela's representative expressed concern that in spite of the country's contribution, politicised elements remain in the organisation's report that reflect negatively on its objectivity and credibility.
The United States government has continued its siege against Venezuela with the imposition of illegal unilateral coercive measures that are causing death, pain and suffering to the Venezuelan people. It continues looting billions of dollars in foreign banks, depriving the Venezuelan state of its vital resources to acquire food, medicines and medical supplies.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez announced a series of fiscal measures which will see the price of electricity reduced. Sánchez noted that his government also aims to tackle high gas prices before they become a major issue over the winter period. The reduction in electricity tax will be from its current 5.11% to 0.5%, which is the minimum required by European Union legislation. The PM also referred to the beginning of a dialogue process between the Catalan regional government and the Spanish state, aimed at solving the tensions over the growing pro-independence sentiment in the region. The Netherlands said Tuesday it would further ease COVID-19 restrictions, including an end to social distancing, but will introduce a pass for bars, restaurants and festivals. The pass showing proof of vaccination, recovery from the virus or a negative test will be needed for people aged 13 and over from September 25th, Prime Minister Mark Rutte said. Infection rates are falling in the Netherlands, which early in the pandemic had some of Europe's most lax restrictions, but drastically tightened them during a severe second wave. The country will still require masks on public transport and in airports, but not on trains or tram platforms. Like other nations, the moves are seen as a means to encourage more people to be vaccinated as part of the return to normality.
This means for the entire hospitality sector that the 1.5-meter rule for seating has been dropped and that more people can enter a cafe or restaurant at the same time. No, working with the Corona Pass forces nobody to get vaccinated. You can also get tested to get in somewhere, and that for now remains free of charge. Now that the 1.5-meter rule has been dropped, we have to give each other space in a different way, including getting vaccinated, which is an act of solidarity to protect yourself and each other and our hard-won freedom.
Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Marrero insisted on the need to control the epidemiological situation sparked by COVID-19 in order to gradually reopen the country and work towards economic recovery. The head of government highlighted the importance of reactivating economic and social activities during a meeting with provincial authorities to assess the development of the health situation in the country. In this framework, Marrero stressed the need to strengthen control mechanisms that allow the maintenance of a favourable situation. Cuba, which is struggling to reduce its highest peak of infection since the beginning of the pandemic, registered more than 8,000 COVID-19 cases and 74 deaths in the last 24 hours.
We need to open up the country. We need to reactivate the economy. We also need to make everything socially dynamic and reincorporate people. But for that, we need to see how we can achieve this situation, to get it under control.
Far-right Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro boasted on Monday that he had not received any of the vaccines against the coronavirus and once again downplayed the seriousness of the health crisis in the country. Leaving the presidential palace, Bolsonaro mentioned the result of a blood antibody test to justify his supposed immunity and downplayed the importance of vaccines by stating that he's not received any shots. His statements coincided with the country surpassing 21 million registered cases and the call of Health Minister Marcelo Queiroga for people to be vaccinated. Bolsonaro was diagnosed with COVID-19 in July last year, although he only had mild symptoms. Since the beginning of the pandemic and mirroring US former President Donald Trump, the Brazilian president has been characterized by his disrespect for preventive measures and for downplaying the severity of the coronavirus. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The military junta ruling Guinea since the coup against President Alpha Condé began a 4-day series of talks this Tuesday intended to pave a return to civilian rule. Coup leader Lieutenant Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, who seized power on September 5th, addressed political leaders in a closed-door meeting inside Parliament in the capital Conakry, telling attendees that the coup was the result of the failure of the entire political and military class and accusing the nation's leaders of betraying the values of independence, according to one of the representatives present. Only one person per political party was invited. However, political figures turned up at the Parliament building in great numbers. The junta, which has come under intense diplomatic pressure to a return to civilian rule, later held talks with religious leaders.
We thank the president of the CNRD, who himself recognized that the entire Guinean political class, the entire intellectual class, even the military elite had failed in this country. So, since we agree that we all failed, let's take things in hand again, this time by moving towards new bases. Mamadi Doumbouya intervened no more than 15 minutes. It is to introduce and say that he counts on all of us. At some point, if he is the military man who says that we have all failed, now is the time to put Guinea back on track. We talked about the duration of the transition, the number of NTCs that will be there in the parliament, and also about the government. We worked on these 3 axes And I think that it is what we need before we get down to business.
Nigeria is suffering one of its worst cholera outbreaks in years. More than 2,000 suspected cases have already died, as the West African nation also struggles to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. Almost 70,000 suspected cholera infections had been recorded as of September 5th in 25 of the country's 36 states and the capital Abuja, according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. There are concerns that the official figures may also be an undercount, given that many affected communities are in hard-to-reach areas. Children between the ages of 5 and 14 are the most affected age group in this current health crisis, which has a case fatality ratio of 3.3%, more than double that of the coronavirus rate of 1.3% in Nigeria. Myanmar's ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi attended a hearing at a special court on Tuesday after skipping the proceedings on Monday due to car sickness. The trial against Suu Kyi resumed after an 8-week suspension due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Suu Kyi was deposed by the military in a February coup that sparked a mass uprising. According to rights organisations, the junta launched a brutal crackdown to suppress opposition, and its forces have killed more than 1,000 civilians since. The ousted leader is facing 6 charges for alleged violation of COVID restrictions, possession of walkie-talkies, corruption, sedition, and violating the Official Secrets Act, with a potential prison sentence of 75 years. In Afghanistan, uncertainty still reigns regarding the nation's future. From neighbouring Pakistan, our collaborator and colleague from Al Mayadeen, Bark Yunus, brings us the latest.
After many rumors about the alleged assassination of the Taliban government's Prime Minister, Mullah Baradar, the latter denied such news and explained that he is still alive, through an audio recording released by the Taliban in which Baradar assured that he is alive and that the rumors sought to sow doubts among the Afghan people and their leadership. Mullah Baradar added that he was not harmed in any way. This comes after a slew of conflict reports that Baradar was killed in a firefight between the Taliban themselves, news that Baradar also denied in his recording. At the level of international relations, the Russian news agency reported that according to the Russian Foreign Ministry, Moscow intends to send medical and food aid to Afghanistan, according to statements by the Russian Foreign Ministry, but the size of such aid has not yet been announced. And this follows China's decision to send medical and food aid worth $31 million. On the other hand, statistics indicate that the losses of the United States of America are still under review and scrutiny, as the latest studies indicate that the U.S. administration was spending the sum of $290 million a day at a minimum, and continuously for 7,300 days of its war in Afghanistan, with the declared objective of putting an end to the existence of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, and which now became clear and public its failure in that context, following the arrival of the Taliban to power again, and also with the reappearance of Ayman al-Zawahiri, the second head of Al-Qaeda, which proves once again that the U.S. objectives have not been achieved. The report also definitely confirmed that this excessive budget was not only meant for U.S. forces, as reports published by the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs Cost of War project indicate that a large proportion of these funds were subject to significant financial corruption by senior political and military officials, which could be one of the main reasons for the failure of the U.S. administration to properly manage and support the Afghan armed forces, which ultimately led to the collapse of the Afghan army within days in the face of the Taliban.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.